Oral questions by members.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, a 92-year-old man was assaulted by multiple people in downtown Vancouver East Side. He later died in hospital. What was the issue? He simply wanted to use a washroom. Went into Carnegie Centre and was assaulted. His family went looking for him, and when he didn't return, and they received a call from the hospital 2 hours later. Businesses around the province have to have security guards. Is this Premier really prepared to say that we have to have security guards at all public washrooms down the province? This is completely unacceptable. Maybe the Premier can explain why seniors aren't safe using public facilities in British Columbia.
Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This is a terrible story about an elderly man who just wanted to access a public facility at the corner of Main and Hastings in the downtown east side, and it shouldn't matter where it is in the province. Seniors need to be safe in our communities. We've worked closely with the City of Vancouver to support additional enforcement in the downtown east side to address those issues. We have larger systemic work to do with them on what's happening in the community. And across the province, we stood up 12 repeat violent offender teams. We're tracking 400 people driving down criminal activity in the province. We are increasing funding for the Justice Institute of BC. It's up 50% for more police officers across the province. But it can't just be police. It also needs to be addressing issues of mental health and addiction, which is why we're working with an expert in the area to open up facilities to support people with serious brain injuries, mental health issues that lead them to be a danger to themselves and to other people. Lots more work to do, Honourable Speaker. This is an unacceptable and deplorable incident.
Leader of the Official Opposition, supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the reality is the streets are becoming more violent, more chaotic, and we're seeing more brazen attacks by the day. Mental health and addictions is a serious issue, there's no question. But what we have seen is a soft-on-crime, soft-on-drugs approach by this government for years, which has perpetuated and grown this problem. So perhaps the Premier can just answer a simple question. Will he admit that his approach in British Columbia has failed?
Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This is a serious issue that we're seeing actually across the country and across North America. Random stranger attacks, issues around safety in public spaces. Here in BC, we're taking an approach to really focus on those individuals that are causing that chaos. Our Repeat Violent Offender program has driven down repeat offending by 40%. We're seeing double-digit crime reductions in a number of communities across the province. Now, we've got more work to do here, Honourable Speaker. That's why we're opening a new facility this month at Surrey Pretrial for people with serious mental health and addiction issues. Another facility in Maple Ridge on the Alouette grounds to ensure that people get the care that they need. We've got more work to do, but we're headed in the right direction, Honourable Speaker. But with that said, you get incidents like this, it shakes people's confidence, rightly so. Everyone needs to be safe in every corner of the province. That's our goal. That's what we're going to deliver.
Member for Abbotsford South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Premier just mentioned what shakes people's confidence. Well, let me tell you what else shakes people's confidence in British Columbia. Within the last week, the RCMP dismantled not one, not two, but 3 highly sophisticated drug labs in Pitt Meadows, Mission, and then Aldergrove. They were set up in commercial buildings just steps away from residential areas. We've learned that these were not street dealers. These criminals were running super labs with industrial equipment and expert chemists that were tied to international organized crime. We also know that 2 suspects were arrested, and then surprise, surprise, then released. How did this NDP government allow BC to become a safe haven for industrial-scale fentanyl production where drug-peddling criminals operate with virtual impunity?
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the member opposite for the question. Enforcement is the key pillar of our efforts to fight the toxic drug crisis. We're ensuring police have the tools to go after drug traffickers and seize all of their equipment, which is exactly what happened all across the province. Your question about the release of the offender in this case is one that is better addressed because it is a federal Crown Council responsibility. We're not responsible for it. We've advocated to the federal government to change the law, and it is a work in progress with us and them.
Member supplemental.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, the Premier can sit there and roll his eyes and shake his head. But several million lethal doses of fentanyl were intercepted over the weekend. If it was not for the hardworking police officers, 5 million doses of fentanyl could be flooding our streets right now. The RCMP are pleading for stronger tools to fight national crime. The RCMP are pleading for stronger tools to fight transnational crime. Mr. Speaker, when will this soft-on-crime, pro-drug NDP government stop playing games, put the rights of victims before violent criminals, and bring the legislative reforms needed to shut down organized criminal operations?
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's important that the opposition understand that we've made the largest investment in policing in our province's history. $230 million has been expended to hire more RCMP officers across the province. This is filling vacancies in rural detachments and hiring additional officers in areas like major crime. We've created the Integrated Gang Task Force Team, which is improving intelligence coordination related to gang activities. At the root of all of these offences are money laundering and organized crime. We're prioritizing those groups for enforcement all across the province.
Leader of the Green Party.
Honourable Speaker, it's a solemn day, as was reflected on the front steps of this building at the noon hour. Since the toxic drug crisis was declared a public health emergency 9 years ago today, we have lost more than 16,000 British Columbians. Mr. Speaker, we must make every effort to avoid normalizing this emergency and continuing with business as usual. I recognize the efforts this government has made to address the crisis, but, Honourable Speaker, it is not enough. Not when we continue to lose loved ones, 5, 6, and 7 every day. Through you, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier, does he see a day when we can set aside political calculus, as we did during the other recent public health emergency, which was COVID, and implement the evidence-based policies that are urgently needed to save lives?
Minister of Health.
Thank you so much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you so much to the member for the question and for noting that today is indeed a very solemn and somber day. On this 9th anniversary of the declaration of a public health crisis, a toxic drug crisis that has taken the lives of over 16,000 British Columbians. Mr. Speaker, each and every one of these people was loved. They were daughters and sons, some were mothers and fathers. Each and every one of these people is grieved by the people that they've left behind. And it's important that we always remember these people, their families, and put them at the center of the work that we're doing. I appreciate the support of the member opposite, Mr. Speaker, in the work that we are doing, and his encouragement for the work that we have to continue to do, Mr. Speaker. That's why we, as a government, have invested so much into a full continuum of care, providing supports for people at every stage of the journey that they are facing in battling their addictions. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot more to do, but there are new services. There are new treatment beds, over 750 publicly funded new treatment beds, Mr. Speaker. We are continuing to build out services for youth, for Indigenous people, for women, and ensuring that people have access to the full continuum of supports that they need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member supplemental.
Thank you to the Minister. 9 years of an emergency and drug poisoning continues to be the leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 59. Mr. Speaker, I'm failing to hear the urgency. Report after report, experts continue to provide this government with the solutions needed to save lives. more treatment beds, prescribed and non-prescribed safe supply, regulated and evidence-based treatment services, and more of them, barrier-free access to healthcare that can be a starting point for healing, and accessible housing for all, and basic human dignity. After 9 years, I think it's time we recognize that every drug death is a policy choice. Through you, Honourable Speaker, again to the Premier, the evidence, research and policy solutions are in front of us. When will this government make the changes urgently needed to save lives?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I don't disagree with the member at all about all of the supports that he has listed, and that is why this government will continue to add new resources, as we did in this year's budget, to continue to support people through every stage of their journey. Mr. Speaker, whether that's harm prevention services like take-home naloxone kits, like drug checking services, like overdose prevention services to keep people alive, connecting them to the supports that they need, Mr. Speaker, building more treatment and recovery beds, Mr. Speaker, adding mental health resources for adults and for youth alike, Mr. Speaker, working with First Nations on 8 new Indigenous-led treatment centres. Mr. Speaker, 2 that are already open, more that are underway, continuing to do the work that is needed. There is a sense of urgency. And Mr. Speaker, while we know that lives lost to the toxic drug crisis are starting to come down, we cannot lift our foot off this gas pedal. We have to continue to invest. That is what this government is going to continue to do, and I look forward to the support of all members of this House in doing this work. Thank you.
Member for West Kelowna Beachland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a former police officer, I've seen the risks our frontline officers take to keep communities safe. 2 Vancouver police officers were set on fire while patrolling the downtown east side. The suspect was wanted on 10 outstanding warrants for his arrest, which included violent offenses. One of the officers was burnt. This is just the latest in a string of over 35 assaults on VPD this year alone. That's a 25% increase. Will this Premier abandon his anti-police activism and finally stand with the men and women who risk their lives every single day to keep our streets safe, and for once put the rights of victims ahead of violent criminals?
Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, spent most of my life as a police officer. The incident on the downtown east side is horrific. It's a senseless act of violence. There's no justification for that type of behavior. I'm glad to hear that a suspect has been arrested and charged in this incident. I should thank police for their swift action in apprehending the suspect. My thoughts are with those 2 officers, and I wish them a full recovery.
Member for Surrey Panorama.
BC's police officers put their lives on the line every single day. I know this because I was a police officer. I've lost friends. What they need is a premier focused on public safety and not how to sue the police. Mr. Speaker, with officers being spat on, slashed, and set on fire, when will this Premier finally stand up and restore peace and order to British Columbia?
Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the member opposite for the question. It's important that we understand that policing in Canadian society has not changed in many years. We believe that police officers are centurions at the gates of justice. I, like you, took an oath to protect the law in this country, and I worked almost 40 years to do that. What has changed is, to some degree, the way we treat people who have, for example, concurrent drug and alcohol addictions. That has changed. So what we must do, what we will do every day as the rationale changes for behavior, make sure that we adapt our plans to do that. And every day, every month, every year across this province, when men and women who wear the uniform to protect the country go out there to do that, we arm them by giving them the tools to do the job. In British Columbia, we continue to do that, and that will be my pledge to you. We will continue to give the police the tools to do the job they need in British Columbia.
Member for Courtney Comox.
Mr. Speaker, on March 25th, a man in Parksville was attacked in his own home. A stranger rammed a car through his garage, broke in, wrapped a chain around his neck, and threatened to kill him. The suspect was arrested and then released on $500 bail. This wasn't petty theft. This was a violent home invasion. He is currently out free, Mr. Speaker. Can the Premier explain to British Columbians why someone capable of that kind of violence is currently free and back out on the streets?
Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we can all agree that that's a horrific incident and that we are thinking of the family and the victims in such a case. It's very important in the province that we have very strong bail laws. That's why we led the charge across Canada to make sure that the federal government changed the criminal code to strengthen our bail laws for repeat violent offenders. And we're not done yet. We're going to continue to advocate for a stronger bail system in Canada, and we're going to put the resources in place on the ground to make sure that our system is ready to respond no matter what happens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for North Island.
Just days later, in nearby Parksville, another family was terrorized by a stranger who broke in while they were sleeping. The intruder tried to re-enter the home after being forced out. The man was reportedly intoxicated and released. No charges. Why does this Premier prefer to sue police instead of prosecuting criminals?
Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We haven't just advocated for stronger bail laws across this country and been successful in some criminal code changes. We're going to keep at that advocacy. We've also put direct resources on the ground. And that means the repeat violent offender program that's currently seeing over 400 individuals. And I visited some of these hubs of the Repeat Violent Offender Initiative of frontline workers that are circling around those most violent offenders in our system and making sure that they stay off the streets and that the tools are in place to keep communities safe. We are investing in police officers, record investments in the province. We're investing in Crown prosecutors. We're investing in all those tools that we know the system needs in order to address public safety, and will continue to do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Surrey South.
Mr. Speaker, there's more. A Surrey couple was left covered in blood after a violent, random home invasion attacked by a man demanding their car keys in the middle of the night. The suspect didn't stop there. He tried breaking into 2 other homes and a community building before he was finally arrested. BC, where home invasions have become a normal part of life. Why does this Premier keep putting criminals first? And if he does not put them first, how can British Columbians tell the difference?
Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we all want the same thing in this House. We all want to feel safe in our neighborhoods, downtown, and in our communities. Our Repeat Violent Offender Intervention Program is making a big difference in helping people to break the cycle of reoffending. For example, in Surrey, the Revoy hub there is monitoring 40 people. One of these people used to generate over 100 calls a month to the police. Through that program, he got access to a support person who is helping him to keep his life on the right track. In 4 months after being in the program, there were 0 calls for this man to the police. We're going to continue our actions to make our streets and our neighborhoods safe for everyone.
Member for Abbotsford West.
Well, that is no comfort to a woman who was sexually assaulted in broad daylight at Mill Lake Park in Abbotsford. and the suspect is still on the loose. Again, bad provincial policies putting criminal rights ahead of victims. That is not okay, Mr. Speaker. How can this Premier claim he's keeping British Columbians safe when people can't even walk in their own neighbourhood parks?
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I repeat that every British Columbian deserves to feel safe everywhere in British Columbia. We're acting not only to strengthen policing, but also to rebuild the critical services that were cut under the opposition leader's time in government. The opposition leader's old government cut funding for crime prevention and for victim services. This is at the root of what causes our crime. They ended the prolific offender management program that had reduced reoffending by 40% in its first year. And they also slashed $360 million from health care and mental health. We are making record investments in mental health to break the cycle of crime, including intervention programs and frontline community supports. Mr. Speaker, we know there's more to do, but we're taking action to keep British Columbians safe.
Member for Langley Willowbrook.
Thank you. A brazen armed robbery led to a police chase that ended in Langley after suspects stole a cart of tools and pulled a gun on staff. The chase ended in a multi-vehicle crash that sent 2 RCMP officers to the hospital. One of the drivers is now under investigation for drunk driving. At what point will this Premier put the rights of victims ahead of the rights of violent criminals?
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that incidents like this, as told by the member, can make communities and people feel less safe. Reducing violent crime means addressing it by examining the causes that hold offenders accountable. For example, what we've done is expanded peer-led response teams, bringing together police, mental health professionals, and outreach workers to proactively address public safety concerns like the one raised by the member opposite. In the first 9 months of 2024, these teams responded to over 4,000 calls. These teams are now operating across BC, helping people in crisis and breaking cycles of crime. Mr. Speaker, programs like this show that real intervention makes a real difference. We will continue to invest in community-driven solutions that help keep British Columbians safe wherever they are.
Member for Skeena.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This weekend in Terrace, a man known to police pointed a gun at his neighbors, threatened to kill them, and then barricaded himself in his home during a nearly 8-hour standoff with police and SWAT. Police seized multiple firearms, and yet he was out of jail just 8 hours later. His victims, who were also his neighbors, were not informed that he was released. When will this government end its disastrous catch and release policies and start protecting innocent people in our communities?
Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's vitally important that we have really strong bail laws in this province and, in fact, across the country, which is why we led the charge and will continue to lead the charge with the federal government to make sure that the criminal code has the right tools in it for our justice system here in BC. Mr. Speaker, it's vitally important that we keep guns off our streets, that we make sure that guns are not in the hands of criminals. That's why I'm surprised to hear this question from across the way, because when the Leader of the Opposition was campaigning to be Premier, he said that if he was Premier,
wait for your turn.
If he was Premier, he would instruct police officers to stop enforcing the laws related to semi-automatic guns. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine how safe we would be in this province. Is why I'm glad we're over here and they're over there.
Member for Prince George North Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Tuesday, April 8, 2025, a man was randomly stabbed
in broad daylight behind the Odeon Theatre in downtown Victoria. The suspect is still at large. Police believe this was a completely unprovoked attack. It happened at noon in the heart of our capital city. Why has this Premier allowed British Columbia to turn into a dystopian hellscape where criminals have free rein and often more rights than their victims?
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's disturbing to hear the member talk about using dystopian terms to describe what's happening here in British Columbia. This is not a dystopian society. We condemn crime where it happens and when it happens. And for you to suggest that we allow criminals to go free is contrary to the facts. Everyone who is arrested in British Columbia is taken before a court, and a court decides whether or not he or she will be released. That is the police's job, to ensure that a criminal is brought before the bar of justice. That happens every day in this province. We do have a disagreement with the federal government, the way some of their release provisions work. And the Premier and the Attorney General has made trips to Ottawa to talk about that and to ensure that changes are made.
Member for Caribou-Chilcotin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Williams Lake, a prolific offender smashes into a tire shop. He then steals a truck from inside, drives it through a second door. A few days later, a prolific offender trashes a local tea shop's front door. Fires, vandalism, violence, and prolific crime is daily life now. And while BC families are afraid to walk their own streets, a Mexican hitman tied to the La Familia Michoacana cartel is seeking refugee status right here in British Columbia. If the government will not solve prolific crime, at the very least, will the Premier assure British Columbians that today, hitmen and hired killers are not welcome in BC?
Attorney General.
Let me be clear on behalf of government. Individuals like that are not welcome in BC.
Member for Surrey Cloverdale.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Senior citizens beaten to death, fentanyl super labs, home invasions, people threatened with firearms, random stabbings, sexual assaults, a little 6-year-old girl killed by a hit-and-run driver suspected of impaired driving. Terrible incidents, Mr. Speaker, not just examples from one city, but these incidents are happening all across the province. Based on everything that we've heard today, Mr. Speaker, it's no wonder that a recent survey found that 58% of British Columbians don't feel safe in their communities. As a former police officer, I've seen assaults on police, but I was shocked to see the video of 2 Vancouver police officers set on fire last week. 35 assaults on VPD officers in just over 3 months, and instead of standing with police, this Premier funds pro-drug, anti-police groups that actively work against them. So my question, Mr. Speaker, is how can British Columbians feel safe when the people risking their lives to protect us are under attack and this Premier is working against them?
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's become obviously repetitive to read the headlines here and accuse the government and the police of not doing their job. We support...
Members, order.
This is a government that supports the police. We've made Unlike the members opposite, we've made the largest investment in policing in our province's history. We're training today and hiring more police officers. JIBC training up 50% from 192 to 288 police officers per year. Where were you when that was happening? This is a government. This is a government that gives resources to strengthen our
Members,
law
come to
enforcement.
order. Members,
That's
through the
something
chair.
that we will do and will continue to do.
The balance the question period.